everybody. Thanks for hopping on the podcast. But before we get going, want to remind everybody about the Friends of Steve Mcqueen Car and Motorcycle Show benefiting the Boys Republic in Chino Hills, California. That will be this June the 5th. Again, mark it on your calendar, June the 5th at the Boys Republic in Chino Hills, California. This year's theme is On Any Sunday, which was one of Steve McQueen's very popular movies. So if you want to have your car or motorcycle enrolled or exhibited at the show, visit www.stevemcqueencarshow.com to find out more details, and we will see you at the car show. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ed's Auto Garage. Again, it's Ed Arango coming to you live from my garage here in Huntington Beach, California. It's a beautiful sunny day. It's a little crisp, but it's wonderful here. Today, I have a great guest, a local guy that we've all seen over the years here, and now he's going to be seen basically all over the place across the country on different ABC channels. My guest today is Dave Kunz from ABC-LA News. So if you watch Eyewitness News Channel 7 here in the local area, Dave is the guy. But before we get talking to Dave, I want to let everybody kind of know a little bit about what I've been talking about for the last couple of podcasts. It's the Friends of Steve McQueen Car Show. Again, Friends of Steve McQueen Car Show is coming up for June the 5th, the car show itself. The events start as soon as June 3rd with a dinner and some other events and giveaways and stuff like that. But the actual car show is on June the 5th at the Boys Republic down in Chino, California. Steve McQueen was a student at the Boys Republic, and the school was basically a school for, kind of knucklehead kids or little troubled kids, and Steve apparently was one of those. So fast forward, he got his career going, and he always treated the school as a place that kind of set him in the straight and narrow, and therefore he kept on always supporting the school. And about 16 years ago, they started a show in his honor at the school. So the show is called The Friends of Steve McQueen. Yes, there's going to be Porsches. Yes, there's going to be Mustangs, but they want all cars, not just those cars. So if you've got hot rods, if you've got AMC Pacers, whatever you got, Pintos, anything, they're more than happy to have you come in and bring the show. Even old cars like an old Alpha is welcome to the show as well. But by all means, again, put it in your calendar, June the 5th for the Steve McQueen car show, which is the Friends of Steve McQueen. And you can find out more information at their website, which is stevemcqueencarshow.com. So pay a visit, and it's a great event, and it goes to a great cause. So like I said, today I have my guest is Dave Kunz. Dave, welcome to the show. Thank you for jumping on here with me.
Hey, Ed, it's my pleasure to be here. Always happy to talk cars, even in my sleep sometimes.
I know. So Dave, a lot of us have seen you over the years, and we know of you. We see you on TV. Tell us a little bit about you personally, your upbringing. How did you become a car guy, and what kind of narrowed you into this whole little crazy space of cars?
Well, when I was a kid, every picture of me, whether it was Christmas morning or my birthday or just out somewhere, I've always got a toy car in my hand. I go through the family photo albums. I was just crazy about cars. And one of my first memories of a cool car is this one right here. It's a 1965 Mustang that my aunt and uncle bought new. And my uncle kind of customized it a little bit. He put dual exhaust on it and mag wheels and everything else. And I remember being fascinated by that car as a kid. So I own that car today. I bought it from them a number of years ago. They both passed on, but
That's
I
the
just was
actual
always,
car there.
yeah, it's a 1965 Mustang.
Wow.
It was bought new at University Motors Ford in San Diego. And my uncle was an insurance claims adjuster, and he had a company car. Well, my aunt, this was her daily driver. They lived in San Diego in the Mission Valley area. She worked in downtown San Diego for the Wix Corporation. So it had a nice, easy, like 10-mile drive, and then it stayed in a parking garage all day out of the sun, and then it stayed in the garage at night, and they just took really good care of this car. They bought a third car in 1980 when this was 15 years old, but they decided to keep it. And then finally in 1994, my uncle called me up and said, we're thinking about finally selling the Mustang. Would you be interested? And yes. You know, I've always wanted that car. So when I bought it, he gave me a manila folder about that thick that I still have, full of every receipt for this car, including the window sticker, the bill of sale, every oil change, every set of tires, everything about this car fully documented. So it's a keeper.
Wow. And the car it's in its original state. I mean, you haven't redone the whole car or anything like that. Hey everyone, Ed Arango here from Ed's Auto Garage, wanting to give a shout out to our show sponsor, Arango Insurance Services. Arango Insurance Services is a full service insurance agency. We do home, auto, commercial, and any specialty. We specialize in the automotive space. So if you are a restoration shop, an OEM shop, a componentry manufacturer, we're able to insure you. It's a great time right now to have your policy reviewed, see if we can save you money, make sure you are properly insured, and at least evaluate your policy. See if you're in the right spot. So give us a shout out at Arango Insurance Services. You can reach us at our website, www.arangoins.com, or give us a call at 949-887-1274. Enjoy the podcast. We'll talk to you later. You haven't redone the whole car or anything like that?
Well, I'll tell you something interesting. So Uncle Dick, he ran the claims office at National General Insurance in San Diego. I'm sure they've been swallowed up by somebody else now, but who knows? And he knew every body shop in San Diego. In fact, he got a discount for everything. He got a discount on this car in early 1965 when Mustangs were a hot commodity, because, you know, he spent a lot of work there. In 1982, he was retiring kind of young, and a body shop, a guy he'd become friends with over the years, said, tell you what, as a retirement present, let me take your Mustang. It had been repainted several times over the years. Let me strip it down to bare metal. And I'll take all the little dings and dents out, and I'll paint it the original color, which is called honey gold, because it had been painted different shades of green over the years, like lime green and a darker green. And this paint that's on this car is from 1982, the summer of 1982. So this paint is nearly 40 years old.
40 years old. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. So you have this car. What do you do as a daily driver? What do you have as a daily driver?
Well, I have a couple of daily drivers, but the nice thing is, because of my job, I get to drive a lot of manufactured test cars.
Sure.
Right now, I have the newest version of the Honda Passport Trail Sport. Recently, I've driven the new Mercedes fully electric EQS. So I've almost always got some kind of a test vehicle from a manufacturer at my disposal. My daily driver that unfortunately sits at work with a car cover on it and a battery tender hooked to it is a Volkswagen GTI. And then my wife's daily driver, which is my weekend driver, is a Chevy Bolt EV electric.
Oh, wow.
And then I've got a BMW motorcycle. I don't know if you can see it. And I use that on weekends too. So there's never a shortage of things to get around on in my world.
Now you also had an older Bronco for a while or something, did you not?
I still do. In fact, it was in a commercial for Haggerty a few years ago, where this old timer is showing the car to his granddaughter, and she's inside and she's very confused because she doesn't know how to open the window. And he has to explain to her, it's called a window crank, you know, and then she's like, and Haggerty's been big on trying to teach young people, as you know, about cars. And so the girl's cranking the window and she goes, that's really cool. So I was using that. It's been on Jay Leno's Garage. It's been at different car shows. I've had that. I bought the Bronco before they really went crazy in price. I've had that. It'll be 17 years this summer. And I've also got my 68 Steve McQueen Mustang Fastback that I just finished an article on for the program at the Friends of Steve McQueen show on the history of my car and how long I've owned it and all the things it's been in. So people think I'm a Ford guy, which, you know, I like Fords, but trust me, I have a laundry list of cars that I want. They're not all Fords.
So you're driving the Passport right now, and I saw your segment on the Mazda, also all-wheel drive vehicle.
Yes.
and the comparison. I don't know if it's a comparison, but you were also highlighting the Passport. What do you think of these cars as you're driving them for new cars?
Well, the Mazda invited me. I drove up to Santa Barbara for the launch, immediate drive it's the CX-50.
Yeah.
And so they want to make sure to distinguish it. It's not the CX-5. That's more of our city car. This is one that we really concentrated on the all-wheel drive performance. They only come as all-wheel drive. And so I had the Honda Passport Trail Sport scheduled anyway. And that's also all-wheel drive. It has some more rugged tires on it and a wider track. And Honda is also saying, you know, you can actually take this thing off road. And part of the theme of the story was with COVID and everything else, people have changed their vacation ideas. So the theme of the story was the whole sensation of overland camping. And in fact, there's a series on Prime Video called Overlanding. We used a couple clips of that of people going up into the wilderness and putting a tent and telling the kids, put your phones away because I'm not going to work here anyway. We're out of cell range. And it's about like kind of getting away from it all. And the manufacturers are timing these two particular vehicles really well. And obviously there are others for people to maybe not get on a plane, go to a hotel, go to whatever, and maybe just get up and kind of get into nature a little bit. So that was kind of the theme of that story.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny. I mean, and the more you think about it, I mean, there is going to be, I would assume there'd be a trend towards that, because I mean, we all, you know, take vacations and go and run and take a tour and do this and come back and do that. And then the vacation's over, you come home and it's like, I need a break before I go back to work, you know, because you were running from airport to here to go do that, to go do, and then you're just like, okay, I need a 2 days before I get back into the office. So the fact that people can now kind of take a step back, look at their vehicle and kind of go, you know what, we can get away, go someplace that's nice and quiet, get away from all the plugins and all this stuff, and just detach from everything, enjoy yourself for a couple of days, and then get back in the car and drive back home. I mean, we have an Outback, a Subaru Outback. And I love the car. I went from a Ford F-150 truck to a Subaru Outback because, well, one, gas was getting so expensive at the time, and then I bought the Subaru, and I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this thing. I'm gonna drive a station wagon. I love it. Yeah. You know, I've gotten like so used to it. I love it. You know, and my son, you can see back here, it has the WRX STI, which is a monster beast car. And I saw your segment on the WRXs that you did. And I mean, this thing's a beast, but it is so well, there seem to be so well made. I mean, Subaru's not giving me any money to say anything, but you know what I mean? I'm just saying it is.
Subaru has a very loyal owner base, as you probably know. In fact, along those lines of getting away from it all, last year they introduced the Outback Wilderness, and Wilderness is now a sub-brand, and now there's the Forester Wilderness, and they have a little extra ground clearance, and they have some more rugged tires. And when I covered the event, they did an event out at Calamigos Ranch in Malibu, and they said, a lot of our customers want to go out and do things and go places and go up and go, and it comes with roof racks already, and there's accessories you can get for it. So Subaru saw that market a long time ago, but they've now enhanced that with this Wilderness line for the Outback and for the Forester. And they've hinted that there may be more Wilderness vehicles in the Subaru line as well. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that there should be, and I think that there is that niche, because I think people will be kind of like want to get out, even though it's kind of hard. You're here in Southern California, it's like you got to drive 2 hours to get someplace that you feel kind of, or more.
Well, you can wait, or you can wait 2 hours at LAX for your plane, assuming it's on time. So take your pick.
Yeah, exactly. You're gonna wait two hours for that. Hey, so you're so well dialed into what's going on in the car space. I don't get out from inside this garage very much, but what's your take on this whole thing with the prices of gas? I mean, I mean, you're experiencing it just like all of us. Everybody is, you know. Do you think it's gonna go back down a little bit, or what is everybody else saying out there?
Well, it's been inching down. Everything went kind of, it was like a perfect storm, with the war in the Ukraine and supply shortages and everything else. It was like, boom, it all went up. It has been creeping back down. There's an ARCO station right near me that I really monitor, and I see what the price is. And that's been dropping, maybe 5-10 cents per week. And now it never goes down as fast as it goes up, of course.
Of course.
But, my overall lesson, I was a kid in the 1970s when the gas shortage came about, and I remember my parents having to wait in line to buy gas, and the price had doubled, and they'd only give you 10 gallons of gas, and then they had a system where you had to buy gas based on what day of the week it was on your license number, the odd system. So I remember that. I remember my parents being frustrated, trying to find a place to buy gas. So that's always been in the back of my mind. So that's why when you asked what my daily driver is, I've always had for the last 30 years, a nice, tidy hatchback. Which is what the GTI is, fairly fuel efficient. You can carry a lot of stuff. It can carry people. It can be sporty enough. And so, I always say to people, buy the most fuel efficient car that will meet your needs. If you can get a hybrid, great. If you can get a plug-in hybrid, great. Or just a very efficient, car with a 4-cylinder engine. You mentioned having an F-150 and going from that to an Outback. I have a friend, she's a mom with a bunch of kids, and she had a Honda Odyssey minivan that she just basically beat to death.
Sure.
And she was, asking me for advice. She goes, "Oh, I'm looking at the new minivans, and what do you think of this? And what do you think of that?" I mean, her Honda literally blew up with 300,000 miles on it. So I said, take a look at the new Toyota Sienna, because as of last year, they redesigned it, and they all come as hybrid models. So she went and looked at a bunch of different things, and she ended up with this Sienna. It has the same functionality as her previous Honda Odyssey. And the Honda Odyssey is a great minivan, but she probably averaged, mostly local driving, maybe 18 to 20 miles per gallon. She had this Toyota Sienna about 2 weeks, and she sent me an email, said, "I finally have to buy gas for this. I can't believe what kind of mileage I'm getting, because it's rated at 35 mpg combined." So she almost doubled her fuel economy, and she has a vehicle that meets all her needs. So I tell people that, yeah, if you're a contractor and you need an F-150 to do your job every day, that's what you're going to need. But if you're just someone who bought an F-150 to commute in because you thought it was cool, now you're paying for it at the pump when you fill that thing up, and it's 100 to 120 bucks a couple times a week. Maybe you didn't need to buy that big F-150.
Right. I mean, and it's kind of funny because when we bought that F-150, it was during a time that you're kind of thinking, well, I have to go to Home Depot every once in a while. I'll need to get a couple of bags of compost or something, and you're like, okay, well, that's why but then you start thinking, I'm buying a truck because I may go every once in a while. So yeah, it didn't make sense any longer for us to do it. Let me ask you this. How big of a fan, or are you a fan, or are you quasi fan of electric cars? Full electric.
As I mentioned, my wife's daily driver is a Chevy Bolt EV. We leased it 2 years ago, and that was coming off 2 3-year leases of the Fiat 500e. That was such a great deal, and that met her commute needs. The Bolt is even better because it's got a range of 250 miles. There's plenty of room inside, and my wife has not been to a gas station in 8 years. We installed a level 2 charger at home when we got the first Fiat, plugs it right in, and with the Bolt, her commute is fairly short, actually. So I usually plug it in on Sunday evening after I wash the car. And it lasts her all week. It might even last 2 weeks. We can still take it to Orange County or Santa Barbara or wherever. It'll take the public high-speed charging. So I know they aren't for everybody yet, but if you have a 2-car household, you can probably make do with one of your cars being an electric. And we're sold, and I think we'll probably always have something electric in our household.
Well, it's kind of funny. When COVID hit, and we all stayed home, my wife and I had, we had 2 car payments, and we were home. And for the first couple of months, one of the cars, all I ever did was it parked. I brought it in the driveway, washed it, and put it back and parked it. And then a couple of weeks later, washed it, and I go, you know what? We're making a car payment, an insurance payment, registration. Let's just sell it. We're not using it. So we sold it, and we've kind of come down to one car. Granted, my sons have their cars. I mean, I have, and the reason is I have a little play car. So my Alpha can get me out of a jam if I need to go someplace. I hope it doesn't break down, but if it gets me out of a jam to get someplace. But hey, I'll tell you, I drove this thing up to Monterey for Monterey week without a hiccup, the whole way up, the whole way back, my son and I, and it was great. The only thing that kind of went out was one of the mirrors, the screw kind of got wobbly and whatever, but I fixed it. But I was surprised. So anyway,
well, I will tell you, I think a lot of people are coming to that conclusion. You know, I have cardio. I walk my dog in the evening in the neighborhood, and there's a Prius on the next block from me that I think it finally did move, but for a good 6 months during the COVID, that thing had a half an inch of dirt on it, and the tires were going flat, and there were cobwebs on it. And I thought, here's someone working from home. This is probably their second car. It was probably a commuter. They don't need it right now. So that's probably shifting the car market. Now, if you're in a position where you can sell a car and you don't need to replace it, you're in the catbird seat, because as you know, the values of used cars have really hung in there and even gone up in some cases. I think people are rethinking what their needs are. And you know, with the electric cars, I recently did a story on the new Mazda MX-30, and it's kind of a small SUV size car. It's pure electric. They're only selling them in California, and it only has a range of, I think, 110 miles, which is not great by today's standards. But what Mazda says is, look, most people who live in any kind of an urban area, including Orange County or the Inland Empire, you probably don't drive anywhere near 100 miles a day anyway. And, you know, you charge it at home overnight, you're fully charged up, you know, you leave your house in the morning with a full tank or a full battery. Then Mazda has this great deal. If you buy or lease one of these for, I think it's 2 years or 3 years, if you need to go on a trip, you go back to the Mazda dealership, drop off your MX-30, and you can take a gasoline car, any Mazda, and then take it to Vegas or San Francisco or whatever. When we had our first Fiat lease, they were doing that on the 500e because the range was only like 85 miles. And they had a deal with Enterprise. If you needed a car, you know, for a trip, you got credits, like 10 credits per year or something like that per day for an Enterprise car. Well, we never used it for a trip, but my wife went up to Portland to visit her daughter, and I think she rented a Subaru Outback for like 4 days from Enterprise and didn't cost a dime. So, you know, they are incentivizing those things. And I think, you know, have a relationship with the local Enterprise or Hertz or whatever. If you do an electric car, and just, you know, get this guy's card and, you know, call up and say, hey, can I reserve a Ford Escape or whatever else, because we want to go to Vegas for the weekend. You know, you can just rent another vehicle, probably pay for it with all the money you save not buying gas the rest of the year.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Dave, for you, how many miles are you away from work? I mean, do you go into the office daily, or do you work basically out of the house and then you kind of go from wherever that you are there?
Well, I kind of have to go to wherever I need to shoot a car or do things with cars. I'm only 5 miles from our station in Glendale.
Oh, wow.
So that worked out great. And then when COVID came along, they had us all pretty much working from home. But I was kind of working outside anyway, you know, because I'm usually out places doing things. So they figured out that work can be done remotely. And a lot of my colleagues really like it.
Yeah, I can imagine. So how often, or how, when a car segment comes on, because there isn't a car segment every day.
No,
it's
no. Well, first of all, you got to remember, I don't have a producer. I don't have an editor, and no longer have a camera guy. I do everything. So I'm in. So I have to put the whole story together from start to finish. I have to set everything up.
So you write the story too?
Write it, edit it, do the whole thing. So I like when I get an invite from a car manufacturer. Subaru would like to invite you to drive the new. So if you are a member of your staff would like to come, I am a member of my staff. I'm in.
Let me ask. Okay, I think we're going. Wow. So when these segments come out, it's usually because at one time or another you've been invited by a auto manufacturer to kind of highlight their vehicle?
Well, what they do, there's two ways they do things. There are events. For example, next week or soon, I'm going to drive up to Santa Barbara because Subaru is releasing, we're back to Subaru, their first all-electric vehicle, the Solterra. So what they do is they fly media members in from all over the country, and they do these drive programs, and they have a specific route, and they usually do them in waves over the course of a week. I did one, pardon me, not too long ago. In fact, for that Mazda CX-50, that was also in Santa Barbara. And next month, I'm going down to La Jolla to drive the new Nissan Z, because they're doing it at the Nissan Design Studio. So the nice thing is everybody wants to do their events here anyway, or a lot of them, not all of them. But for example, this week, Range Rover has their new Range Rover model going on up in Sonoma. Now, I can't really do that because it's too many days of traveling and everything else. So those I can't do, or they do things in Texas. Jeep just had a big thing in Utah. So those I kind of have to stay away from. So when I can't go to those, they have these basically agents for their cars, and what they do, they're called press fleet operators. So I'll get a call from this one outfit and they'll say, oh, the Lexus people want to make sure we schedule you into the new LX600, and that's the story I'm working on right now. So what dates do you have available, and we'll bring one over for you. So then I have access to a car, and then sometimes we'll do a Zoom, or I'll just do a phone call with an engineer or a designer or someone from the product marketing. Or if they have a pretty good media website, I can get all the information I need off that. And if I have any questions, there's usually a local rep or someone that's assigned to like the West Coast that I can call and ask questions of.
Now, I know that you also volunteered your time to different shows and different events. I know the Friends of Steve Mcqueen, you've been involved with them for many years. What are some of the other events that you help out with?
Well, one that I did for years, and it's so sad that it went away. If you ever went to the Dana Point Concours d'Elegance,
I did.
And that one started out as, it was called the Newport Beach Concours d'Elegance before I got involved. And then they kind of lost their residency at, I think it was at Pelican Hill Golf Club. So then they moved it down. The first year I did it was down at the Polo Grounds in San Juan Capistrano. Then they moved it to the Irvine Meadows. They had it there for a couple of years.
Oh yeah.
Then it was at a golf course in Irvine called Strawberry Farms. And so then they called it the Newport Coast Concours d'Elegance. And then they finally got it over to Dana Point, to that beautiful hotel. And I was involved with that for a number of years. Unfortunately, they just couldn't keep it sustainable, and it was supposed to be for charity, and the cost just went up. So they had to kind of put the lid on that one, although I hear it might be coming back. Some of the original organizers are trying to get things going. So I was involved with that for a number of years. I was involved with the Palos Verdes Concours d'Elegance for a number of years. That's another one that just, it kind of ran out of steam. I was involved with one in Beverly Hills that was fantastic, called the Greystone Mansion Show. And this wonderful, it's a city park, and it's up in the hills in Beverly Hills. And it was this wonderful car show, and all inclusive. Pardon me, I have to shut off I thought I had everything shut off and something's ringing on me, sorry.
No worries.
It was up at this beautiful, it was built by the Doheny family in the 1920s. And it's like Southern California's version of Hearst Castle, although maybe on a smaller scale. And it's a park for the city of Beverly Hills. They rent it out for filming and they do things, but it's all been restored. And they did a fantastic car show on the grounds. And I was involved with that from the first one to the last one. I've done the Beverly Hills Rodeo Drive Father's Day car show for a number of years. I've done the Art Center Car Classic up at the Art Center College of Design, where some car that you owned, the guy who designed it, or the lady who designed it, may have gone to school there in their transportation design department. That's taken a pause during the COVID, but I think it's going to be back this year. And of course, the San Marino Motor Classic, which I've been involved with from the get-go. So once car show season comes around, the last 2 years notwithstanding, I get pretty busy being asked to help out at these things.
With the San Marino one, where does that take place in San Marino?
It is the coolest location that most people have never heard of, unless you happen to live in San Marino, or my friend Mark Vaughn, who writes for Auto Week. He lives in San Gabriel, but his kids used to play soccer there. It's a place called Lacey Park. Park. It is this wonderful, I don't know how many acres it is. It's right in the middle. San Marino's 95% residential. Right. And you go in the gate to this thing, and it's this beautiful park, all surrounded by trees and fencing. So it's got built-in fencing. And one of the founders, a longtime San Marino resident, and he was able to convince the city, hey, we want to put on a world-class car show here. And I think the first one was 2010, or it might have been 2011. And they raised so much money for a bunch of charities, including the Pasadena Humane Society, the San Marino Rotary Club. There's a cancer charity that they're involved with, and that's become a fantastic show. Now, last year they moved it from June because COVID was still a little restricted. They moved it to August, the week after Pebble Beach, and they told people who were entering like world-class cars at Pebble Beach, hey, as long as you're out on the West Coast, why don't you bring your car down to San Marino for the next weekend? And we have this beautiful San
Ah,
Marino motor, and there's an outdoor gala the night before with a symphony orchestra that plays, or a big band kind of thing. And they got a lot of really good cars last year because of that. So they decided they're going to have the San Marino Motor Classic once again in August, the Sunday after Pebble Beach.
got it. It kind of makes sense. It's kind of smart of them,
Yep.
kind of, because there are the cars, everybody's out here. So
Yep.
might as well just kind of if you want, take a nice drive down the coast and come down.
There you go.
know?
There you go.
So yeah. So, tell us a little bit about how you first got kind of dialed into the Boys Republic and the Friends of Steve McQueen car show, and what attracted you to that?
Well, I had met Chad McQueen a number of times over the years because my other Mustang, my 68 Fastback, which I built like in the 90s. Well, I didn't build it. I mean, Ford Motor Company built it. I bought it as a Highland Green 68 Fastback. And then, in fact, you read my article in the program of the Friends of Steve McQueen, you'll see how that all came about. And I got to know Chad because I was up in San Francisco in 2001 at the launch event for the first Mustang Bullet Edition based on the Mustang GT. Chad drove my car, and we got to hang out and talk about stuff. And then I think I met him and the family. They did a Peterson exhibit that they had my car in. So I got this call out of the blue. I want to say it was 07, whatever the first year, or maybe the second year was. It was, Davey, this is Chad McQueen. Hey, we're doing this car show. Can you bring your Mustang? It'd be really cool to have it here. I got a bunch of Porsches and stuff. And literally, I drove down to the Boys Republic, and the entire show was on the softball diamond.
Yep,
That's how small it was.
Wow.
And motorcycles, of course, and I love motorcycles. And so I thought, well, this thing's great. And I think they raised $15,000 or something for the school. And then it just kind of steamrolled from there. And for the longest time, it was the banquet was Friday night. The show was Saturday. And so Matt Stone emceed the banquet for the first number of years. And then he kind of got tired of it, which I can completely understand because it's a lot of work. And then he said, maybe I'll pass the torch here. So they started having me do the banquet probably 6 or 7 years ago when it was in the gymnasium, which is a beautiful gymnasium that thanks to the help of the car show, they're completely refurbished and air conditioned and everything else, but they just outgrew it because everybody wanted to go to the banquet. So then a few years ago, it moved into that big tent up another part of the property. And so the show has just gained so much traction and gotten so much fun. And I'm just happy to help out. Last year, they had a wonderful professional auctioneer, Melissa Nielsen. They've had a few auctioneers over the years for the live auction, and they get a lot of great items that are donated. And so I'm kind of up on the stage. I introduce Chris Burns, the director, and we tell the stories and I help with that stuff. And then, okay, it's auction time, and Melissa comes up there, and I'm sort of her cheerleader. She's talking about some car that someone's donated to the auction, and I'm over there. I'm like the Vanna White while she's doing that. And I want to say just the live auction alone, I think they brought in about $400,000 that all goes to the school. So I'm just happy to help out and be a part of that and make it a fun event and make it a great car event and make it one that people talk about and they tell their friends, you got to go to this show. You got to come next year. It's fantastic. So, and meeting the students, which of course we haven't been able to do the last couple of years because they had to be isolated due to COVID. But in previous years, they've had the students there and they're so enthusiastic. They serve the dinner at the banquet. They help out with stuff during the day as far as helping park the cars, directing traffic, that sort of thing. And it's great to meet the student. They do tours of the campus and you can learn about it, learn about Steve McQueen's involvement when he was a student there way back in the day. It's just a great event. And as long as they'll have me back, I'm happy to be part of it.
That's great. I mean, and it's true. It's kind of funny. I mean, as a kid, I grew up in Pomona, Claremont area. And, I kind of knew that there was this school over there, but I didn't know too much about it or anything like that. But then as years went on, you started hearing a little bit more about it, and they're really doing great things at that school. The culinary department has really exploded there for these kids to learn, how to be chefs or sous chefs and work the kitchen and all of that. So, I mean, and they've got great stuff coming out of there. And yeah, I mean, it is a beautiful piece of property and it's huge. And I think there's a lot of people that might even live close there in the Chino area that may not even really know. They know that there's this gate in this area back there, but they really don't know what's really going on back there.
Well, I think there's a lot of misnomers about it. I had a friend and I said, "Hey, you ever go to this thing?" And he goes, "Isn't that a prison?" I'm like, "No, it's not a
Yeah.
prison." And oh my gosh. And if you look at old pictures of that school when it started like 100 years ago, there was nothing around. And now
No.
there's shopping centers and houses and everything else. And I think that property is just so sacred that they've had some benefactors to help keep it, going over the years, including what I understand, Mr. Mcqueen left a sizable portion of his estate when he passed to help the school out. And so, the school is kind of self-sustaining from that point. But the car show has been able to raise money. You mentioned that culinary institute, the bakery, that bistro, where that all came about because of the Friends of Steve McQueen car show. That's additional funding they could use. And I've spoken to Chris Burns and interviewed him on stage so many times. And he said, years ago when the kids came out here, the slogan is nothing without labor, and so they want the kids to, you got to work and know the value of labor. Well, it was all farming. It was because that's what Southern California was. It was farming.
Sure.
Well, now there's not so much farming. And so they have trades. As you probably know, the wood shop, they make the trophies for the car show. They make the bases and put these kooky auto parts on them, like connecting rods and things like that.
Sure.
They have a metal shop. But this culinary thing, it really makes these students, when they get out of high school and they become young adults, employable in a working situation. And the bakery, I understand there's a local farmers market. They go over there every week with bread and rolls and cakes and things like that, and they sell out. So that's the first. It was okay. Let's bake all the bread for the students to eat. Because they eat here 3 meals a day. Then it became a money making thing, and these students get to see like, hey, I made that bread and we just sold that and it went back into the school, and I could work at a bakery or I could work at a restaurant.
Yeah, it kind of lets them kind of see how it all kind of comes together in a way for these guys. And then they also do that the Christmas wreaths. I guess they've been doing that since like day one or something like that. Oh gosh,
way back the Della Robbia wreaths. In fact, they have a display of those every year at the car show, so you can pre-order it. I've gotten one the last few years. I hang it up on a little pole out front by our front door, and they're absolutely beautiful. They ship them all over the world, and the students make them. And you can see pictures if you go on. I'm sure they're on the site for at least the school, if not for the Friends of Steve McQueen. And there's pictures of Steve McQueen visiting back in the 60s and 70s when he became quite the movie star, came back and watched the students making these wreaths that they sell every year at Christmas time. So that's another one of their vocations but it's teaching them a business and making something and, using it as a tool for discipline and for work and things like that. So it's just fantastic.
So, so everybody out there listening, I mean, visit SteveMcQueenCarshow.com and learn about the event and learn about what the school does. The event is a great event. It's great to go and see and enjoy your day and bring your family and kids but think of it as also as it's a wonderful cause, to help this youth and be able to get them to, to kind of, set themselves up with their vocation, and the school's doing a wonderful thing. And yeah, by all means, if you can donate, please donate to the Steve McQueen carshow.com website and help out however you can. If not, just go to the show on June 5th. You'll have a great time. It'll be a little warm, yes, but it always is. So
it's Chino Hills, and you think
Chino Hills. It's
good. McQueen was out there probably, driving a tractor around in the summertime, plowing a field or something, and they didn't have air conditioning back then, so you can handle. And there's a lot of shade. There's a lot of trees out there. It's a really just a really kind of eye-opening. And take your kids because show them, hey, you have it pretty good. These kids were disadvantaged, and sometimes they come from broken homes and foster homes, and they've gotten in trouble with the law, and they've been sent there by the court system in most cases. And a little eye opener for your own kids if they complain that you didn't buy them the latest iPhone or the latest Air Jordans. It's like, hey, look, you got some kids here who you got it way better than they do. So it's a nice teaching tool, I think, for kids.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So what's next on the agenda for you? What's you're working on your next article? You said a Lexus article coming up?
Well, yeah, right now, by the time this runs, I think it'll be out. Lexus made a big move. You know, their LX, which is their largest body on frame SUV. It's basically the Lexus version of the Toyota Land Cruiser, or it has been for a number of years. In fact, it was one of the earliest Lexus models. After they launched the brand about 5 years later, they did the first LX. And this year they kind of surprised everybody. It's now called the LX 600, which you would think, oh, that means it has a 6-liter V8. No, it now has a twin turbo V6 for the first time. It's had a V8 for most of its run. I think the first year it might have been an inline six, but it's this twin turbo V6 that, kind of like with the Ford Expedition and the Ford F-150s with the EcoBoost engine, it outperforms the former engine in every measure and gets much better gas mileage, and of course has a smaller carbon footprint. So I'm kind of basing a whole story on cars are going to these smaller engines now, and you don't even notice, but you're getting better fuel economy, and they're able to meet their targets with the corporate average fuel economy standards. So I spent some time in this Lexus LX, jaw-dropping price because it's like the ultimate edition. They start at about $90,000, and this one was well over 120 because I had every bell and whistle, and the back seats were like business class airline seats. It's a very well-made vehicle, and it's wonderful. But the main theme of the story is, you know, they're putting smaller engines. Mercedes-Benz has been going to smaller engines in a lot of their cars, and most of their customers don't even notice. So that's kind of where I'm going with that. As I mentioned, in the month of May, I'm going to be one of the first people to drive the new Nissan Z, which picks up some styling cues from that original Z from back in the day. My oldest cousin had a Z when I was a kid, and my wife and I had a Z, a 280Z, until a few years ago. We finally realized it was her kind of classic car, but she never drove it and didn't have power steering. And so we actually thought, well, let's put it on Bring a Trailer and see what we can do. And we were kind of blown away by how much money we got for it. So there's so much of that nostalgia for the Z. So I'm really eager to drive this new one. I'll be doing that in May. So look for that as well.
What that Z, what is the engine? Is it a 6-cylinder still, or is it?
And the new one, it's a twin turbo V6 with 400 horsepower.
Wow.
And for us gearheads, it's available with a good old 6-speed manual gearbox and a clutch pedal. So nice. They made a big deal about that when they announced the car.
So it's a V6 because they were always inline sixes.
Well, they were inline sixes the first couple of generations. If you remember, there was the 240Z, then the 260, then the 280. Then there was the 280ZX. And then in 1984, when the 300ZX came out, that's when the V6 era started. And then those later ones, those kind of really rounded ones in the 90s, that was a V6 or a twin turbo V6. When they brought the Z back as a 2003 model year, which was the 350Z and the 370Z, those were always V6 engines. So this new one will be an engine that's kind of shared with some of the Infiniti models, but it's a twin turbo 3-liter V6. Hopefully I'm not misquoting here. I think it's 400 horsepower, and that's the only way it comes. There's like one engine, but you can choose an automatic or a 6-speed manual gearbox.
So the styling cues, though, kind of go back to its original, like 240, 260, 280Z, the original, like first generation type. I mean, aren't there some of the styling cues from that?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I got to see a preview of this thing. They didn't get to drive it when it first came out. They rented this big building down near Culver City, and we got to see it. And they brought some of the older Z models from their museum in Nashville, where the company is headquartered, or in Tennessee anyway. And so you see the first Z, that 240, 260, 280, that original one that kind of had that Ferrari Daytona look. And you can pick out things on the new 2023 Z. But then they also brought that one I was mentioning, that's the 4th generation, that 90s one. It's like, oh, look at the taillights. That's a tribute to that car. And there's little things here and there that they managed to pluck from the different generations of Z to give it a sort of a holistic, this is our heritage all kind of spread out over the years, and we put it into this one new modern car.
What do you think? What do you think is going to happen to the V8? Do you think it's going to be an engine that'll be still around, that somebody will still use? I mean, because even like the Ford Raptor is a V6, isn't it? A twin turbo V6 now. the Ford Raptor, and that was like the beast V8 one back in the day.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is the V8 is going to become a niche engine. Stellantis, which is the parent company of both Ram and Jeep, announced recently they've got a brand new inline six-cylinder engine. People think inline six, everyone's gone to V8. No, Mercedes-Benz even brought back the inline six a few years ago. And they say this is going to be, well, they didn't quite say it's going to replace. They go, this makes more power and has better fuel efficiency and lower carbon output than our current V8s. So what they're saying is, we think this six-cylinder can keep the internal combustion people happy. It's turbocharged, it's direct injected, it's very high tech, you know, into the future. And nobody knows how long we'll be able to buy gasoline cars. It might be for the rest of our lives. I don't know. But I think with V8 engines, they might be seen as a little, especially around the world. We've got to remember, you know, in Europe, a lot of the countries are going very, very green, and they're really taxing large engines and high carbon output, and they're really frowning on that sort of thing. So I have a feeling that you'll be able to buy a V8 powered like Mustang for quite a number of years, right alongside the Mustang Mach-E in the Ford showroom. But I don't know that anyone's working on any brand new from scratch V8 engines right now. I think it's all going to smaller kind of turbocharged engines, at least for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. You know, we all know Jay Leno, and he
Sure.
told a great stat. I think I was watching his Jay Leno's Garage, and they were talking about people are so worried about, oh my gosh, electric cars and gasoline cars are going to become extinct, and you'll have to just crush them all and everything else. And Jay Leno had a great statistic, and I don't think he would make this up. A lot of people at the turn of the century into the 20th century, in the early 1900s, when the motor car came along, a lot of people predicted that horses would become extinct. Because, well, you won't need horses anymore. We have motorized vehicles. Well, obviously, if you go around Southern California, you can find plenty of places where people use horses for recreation. And Jay brought up this statistic. He said, do you know there are more horses now in the United States than there were during the Civil War? So if you're worried about your conventional car being obsolete, remember the horse is not obsolete, and those could have been obsolete 100 years ago.
Sure. And I think that, I mean, and I think there's always, I think you're absolutely right. There's always going to be a niche for that. And I think that the car culture, there's always going to be that like you have there, that toy, you know, that car, that weekend driver that, you know, take a drive up the coast and go stay someplace type of car. I think I think a lot of people will have that. I mean, I enjoy my Saturdays and Sundays to get in the car and just get away from everything and go to Cars and Coffee and go, you know, I'm like any other old guy. I kind of go to the car shows or the Cars and Coffee, and I want to look at other people's cars just to look at them. You know, and I think there's always going to be that, you know.
Well, I think if you talk to any of your local elected leaders, you know, and, you know, they say all politics is local. So let's say you have a U.S. representative or your state assembly person or whatever else. And they started getting on this raw thing. We got to get rid of these cars, electric cars. And you say, hey, do you ever attend a local 4th of July parade or Memorial Day parade? Oh, yeah. What did you ride in? Was it a Tesla or was it a 65 Mustang or a 67 GTO convertible? You know, oh, yeah. And they think about that and they think, well, maybe there is a place for those. So you kind of have to do that grassroots thing with people saying, okay, yeah, we don't have, you know, millions of cars. It's not 1968 polluting everything. And then you remember how cars, you know, you go to a car show and all the cars start up at the end and they all drive up and you go, wow, that's a lot of fumes. That's what the freeways smelled like every day, you know. So they're just around for pleasure use. And I think we're going to be able to enjoy these cars for quite a long time.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny because that smell, that always brings back that memory of being a kid. One. Yeah. And I think, you know, I mean, along those lines about what you were saying about the politicians and what have you, I mean, not to get political in any way, but a couple of, was it about a year ago or so when Newsom announced that we're going to go 100% green in 15 years or something like that, that they announced that we were going to go. I mean, I know a lot of people that in my circle of friends, everybody was like, what's happening? Our car's going to go, I mean, we have to sell our car. We're not going to be able to find a mechanic, you know, everybody kind of wigged out, you know, so, but, you know, I think that the cars, you know, these cars are going to still be around.
Oh, I think they will. It's going to be a specialty thing. If you think about it, think about the wristwatch. When I was a kid, the digital watches became a big deal, digital watches. But you can still buy a watch that has mechanical movements. There's still guys not that I have one, but guys in like Switzerland who are there with their little monocle, building watches. It's like, well, that's obsolete technology, but people still want them, and they're still fine and they work great. So I think you did mention people to work on them. I'd say support any institution that is training young people to do things like work on carburetors and want to work on cars that don't involve plugging in a laptop. There's McPherson College in Kansas, which I know Haggerty has a big part of, and Jay Leno funds a scholarship. There's also places that specialize in that. Local high schools are still doing it to a degree, although it's mostly modern cars. So everybody really needs to support, and especially a shop that'll still work on your classic car. I have a place over here in Burbank, and I have to make an appointment to get in because they've become the place that will still, I'll go over there and they'll have a 57 Chevy and they'll have a Corvair and they'll have an old F-100 pickup truck. And they got a couple of older guys who love working on them. And so for now, at least, but you've got to train young people how to work on this stuff or be able to do it yourself, I guess.
Yeah. And like Dave says, support any of those types of organizations. Another organization that I'm very fond of is this organization that's called the Piston Foundation. And what they do is it's a nonprofit, and they're based out of, I believe, Connecticut. The president's out of Colorado area, and they help apprenticeships for repair shops, for classic repair facilities, building older cars, and for a type of work that is becoming obsolete. A lot of these old mechanic guys that work on Zenith carburetors or SU carbs or Webers or whatever, a lot of these mechanics, sad to say, they're kind of moving on in years, and you just don't have anybody left to really support that, or even the manufacturing of working with like English wheels and molding the sheet metal and things like that. So, if you're interested, you want to learn more about getting involved, if you are a student or you were thinking about the love of the classic vehicle, look at Piston Foundation. That's also another organization that's near and dear to my heart as well. So anyway, Dave,
along those lines, one more, the Peterson Museum has a summer program for high school kids. It's an 8-week program where they go there every Saturday and they help on the restoration of a car. I've got a young gearhead across the street, and she loves cars. She's 17 years old. She's super smart. I've had her over here. I've showed her how to change a spark plug on this car. I taught her how to drive a stick shift. I tried to get her to sign up for the thing last summer because I got an email from the Peterson. She goes, "Oh, my mom signed me up for some summer camp." And I think she's going to try and do it this summer because she's going to be a senior next year. It's for high school students. It's an 8-week program. It's like every Saturday for 4 hours for 8 weeks, and they might get some kind of school credit. And it's like an apprenticeship at the Peterson Museum, down in the vault, in their workshop, going to work restoring a car with the docents and the volunteers there. So there's another fantastic program.
Wow. So yeah, locally, for you guys that are here in Southern California, the Peterson Museum, I'm sure everybody's heard of the Peterson Museum. That's a great facility. So yeah, what Dave said, look into that. If you're a young kid and you want to learn a little bit about it, and you can, if you're close enough to get there, that'd be great. Thanks, David. Thanks so much for your time. Thanks for jumping on here. I truly appreciate it. It was great fun. I guess I'll see you at Steve Mcqueen when that comes up in June.
You better. If you're not there, I'm going to go looking for you.
I'll be there. Okay. Thanks a lot, man.
You got it.
All right. Bye-bye.